be my date to the dance?" a poor student asked a nurse, unaware. She was a CEO's daughter. The fluorescent lights in the hospital hallway buzzed faintly overhead as Noah Bennett pushed the mop bucket slowly down the freshly waxed floor. The night shift was quiet, almost eerily so, with only the occasional beep from a heart monitor or the muffled shuffle of a nurse's footsteps echoing in the distance. Noah was used to silence. He lived in it, both at home and here. The hospital, for all its clinical coldness, had become something like a second home. He had memorized its smells: antiseptic, plastic gloves, warmed-up vending machine meals. Most nights, he kept his head down and did his job. Efficient, invisible, necessary. As he passed the nurse's station, something taped to the wall caught his eye, a colorful flyer fluttering lightly in the air-conditioned breeze. He paused, mop still in hand, and stepped closer. The paper read, "Spring Charity Dance, a night to remember, open to all hospital staff and medical students." He stared at it for a long moment, his brow lifting slightly. A dance, probably in the big conference hall, lights strung across the ceiling, music echoing across the sterile tile. He imagined people laughing, dancing, dressed in clothes far nicer than anything hanging in his closet. He imagined what it might feel like to be someone who belonged in a place like that. A small, crooked smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, equal parts amusement and sadness. "A night to remember," he murmured under his breath. "Not for someone like me." He resumed mopping, careful not to smear the freshly waxed corners. Behind his quiet focus, his mind wandered, to the past, to the things he did not often say out loud. Noah was 23, a public health major in his final year, juggling coursework, clinical rotations, and this janitorial job that paid barely enough to get by. Every dollar went toward rent, tuition, and medications for his grandfather, his only remaining family. His mother had died in a car accident when he was 12. She had been the one constant in his young life, a soft-voiced woman who worked double shifts at a grocery store and still managed to read to him every night before bed. She had written him a letter the week before she passed, a letter he still carried, folded neatly in a small wooden box, edges worn soft with time. His father had disappeared soon after her funeral. Since then, it had been just Noah and his grandfather. The old man's heart was weak now, slowed by time and grief, and most days he sat quietly by the window of their small apartment, wrapped in layers, watching the street below. Noah worked nights, so he could be there during the day, studying between tending to his grandfather's needs. His life was a rotation of responsibilities, and dreams, well, dreams had taken a back seat long ago. He rounded the corner of the hallway and instinctively glanced toward the East Wing break area. She was there, Isabel Fairchild. She sat cross-legged on the faded green couch, a medical journal open in her lap, but she was not reading it. Her gaze had drifted to the window, where the city lights shimmered against the black sky. Her golden hair, pulled into a loose bun, had started to fall in wisps around her face. There was something timeless about the way she sat, calm, poised, thoughtful. Noah slowed, letting the mop glide gently over the floor so it would not make noise. He did this often, stealing quiet moments to observe her from a distance. Isabel was a nurse in her mid-20s, known for her calm presence and efficient hands. She was kind, though not overly talkative. She rarely smiled, but when she did, it felt like sunrise, rare and warm and fleeting. He had never spoken to her, not more than a polite "excuse me" or nod of acknowledgement. She always seemed wrapped in a world of her own, distant but not unkind. There was something in her eyes, a shadow maybe, or a secret she carried. Whatever it was, it made her even more intriguing. Noah glanced down at the mop handle in his hands and the scuffed sneakers on his feet. He was just the janitor to her, another face in a place filled with routine and fatigue. She was a different world entirely. But still, as he moved past her with silent steps, he allowed himself one small thought. What if? The staff break room was nearly empty that night, dimly lit by the overhead fluorescence and the glow of vending machines humming in the corner. Noah moved quietly, mop in hand, his steps slow and practiced. It was late, even for a hospital, long past visiting hours, when the corridors fell silent and everything felt a little heavier. As he reached under one of the tables to pick up an abandoned coffee cup, the strap on his backpack slipped off the chair. The bag tipped, and a small wooden box tumbled out, landing with a soft thud. The latch popped open, and a folded, yellowed letter slid out across the floor. Isabel Fairchild had just entered the room. Neither of them had noticed the other until the paper stopped at her feet. She bent down, picked it up gently, and read the first few lines. Her eyes moved slowly, her face still. Then something in her expression changed, like a string inside her had been quietly pulled. She walked over and handed the letter back to him, her voice low and careful. "Your mom had a beautiful soul," she said. "You must be her light." Noah nodded, too surprised to speak. He took the letter from her, tucked it back inside the box, and closed it carefully. He held the box close to his chest. Isabel gave him a soft, understanding smile before walking over to the sink and filling her water bottle. Nothing more was said, but something between them had shifted. After that night, she began leaving little things behind for him. A sandwich wrapped in a napkin, left quietly on the break room table. A folded sticky note tucked into his mop bucket. "Hope you ate something today. I.F." One night, she left a copy of a worn medical ethics book, well read and underlined in ink. Inside the front cover, she had written, "Don't let your light die." Noah never said anything about it, but at home, in the quiet of his small bedroom, he began saving every note she left. He pressed them into a leather notebook, each one neatly dated. It was a private collection of kindness, something he didn't know he needed until he had it. He began to notice more about her too. One evening, Isabel was flipping through a botanical magazine left on the break room counter. She pointed to a photo of wild daisies and said offhandedly, "I used to love these. Wild things growing where they're not supposed to. I haven't seen one in forever." Noah only smiled. He didn't say anything. 2 nights later, when Isabel walked in for her shift, she stopped just inside the room. There, on the windowsill, sat a small wild daisy, carefully planted in a repurposed soup can. No note, no explanation. She didn't ask, she just smiled. Her eyes found him through the doorway, and in that glance, something changed. Then came the rain. It was a Thursday night. The sky had opened up just before sunset. Noah arrived soaked to the skin, his hoodie heavy with water. His bike had broken down halfway to the hospital, so he'd walked the rest through the downpour. Isabel saw him the moment he stepped inside the lobby. She didn't ask what had happened. She just handed him an umbrella and gently guided him toward the break room. A few minutes later, she returned with a mug of hot cocoa, her fingers still smudged with ink from her patient chart. They sat side by side near the window, looking out at the parking lot slick with water and the shimmer of streetlights reflecting off puddles. For a while, neither of them said a word. Then Isabel spoke, barely above a whisper. "Funny. Rain always makes me feel a little less alone." Noah kept his eyes on the window. "Same here." Then, after a moment, "Maybe we're sitting under the same sadness." She glanced at him, her expression unreadable, then looked back outside. They didn't speak again that night. But the silence between them was full. In that moment, in the stillness, the rain, and the cooling cocoa, they weren't just two strangers on opposite sides of a life they hadn't chosen. They were two tired souls, quietly, fully seen. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like enough. The nights between them softened gradually, like verses added to a quiet song. There was no sudden moment, no grand confession, just small exchanges building into something undeniable. One slow shift, Noah found himself sitting across from Isabel in the break room again. She sipped tea as she flipped through a worn sketch pad. Noah had never seen her draw before. She caught him glancing. "I used to want to be an artist," she said with a half smile. "Crazy, right? My dad called it a temporary phase of rebellion." Noah raised an eyebrow. "You? Rebellious?" She laughed softly, tapping her pencil on the table. In his eyes? Always. I wanted to go to art school. I wanted to live in a loft and sell weird paintings to people who didn't understand them. She closed the sketchpad, voice quieting. But that dream didn't match the Fairchild family brand. So, here I am, white coat, perfect posture, scripted life. Noah listened, saying nothing. There was something raw in her words he hadn't heard before. He said nursing was noble and practical, that it would make him proud. She gripped her cup a little tighter. He never asked what would make me happy. A soft silence settled between them. Do you still draw? Noah asked. Sometimes. Late at night, when I can pretend I'm not disappointing anyone. He looked at her, beyond the composed nurse, beyond the name, seeing a woman carrying her own quiet griefs and half-buried dreams. And because honesty invites honesty, he opened up too. When I was a kid, he began, my mom and I watched old musicals. Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly. I used to beg her to dance with me in the living room. He chuckled. I had 2 left feet, but she never said that. She just spun me around like I was in some Broadway show. Isabel smiled, listening. I used to dream of dancing, Noah added. Just once. Real suit, real lights. A song that meant something. He paused. But then life happened. Rent. Meds. Now I just mop floors and hope my shoes don't squeak. They both laughed. Genuine. Unguarded. The kind of laughter shared by people who understood what it meant to let go of dreams. After that, something settled between them. They started sharing meals during night shifts. Ramen, vending machine snacks, leftovers from home. Isabel brought music, digitized records from her father's collection. Noah shared quirky podcasts and obscure movie trivia. She sketched between rounds. He studied flashcards beside her. It was quiet. And it was real. Then, one night, Isabel walked into the break room carrying something unexpected. A violin. Noah blinked. Didn't know you played. It was my mom's, she said. I haven't touched it in years. Without another word, she raised it beneath her chin, fingers trembling, not with nerves, but memory. And then she played. The notes were soft and fragile, floating through the still air. Noah's breath caught. The melody was one he knew, his mother's favorite lullaby, the one she used to hum while folding laundry or brushing his hair at night. It broke something open in him. His eyes welled up. He tried to blink it away, but the tears came, warm and quiet. When Isabel finished, she looked at him gently. You told me once about the song your mom loved, she said. I found it. Thought maybe it could be hers again. Just for a minute. Noah nodded, swallowing hard. He wiped his sleeve across his eyes and gave her a watery smile. Thank you, he whispered. In that moment, the break room no longer felt sterile or cold. It felt sacred, a place where ghosts were gently held, and 2 quiet souls found something of themselves in each other. The hallway was quiet that afternoon, bathed in the soft golden light of early evening. The windows along the east wing caught the sun just right, casting long beams across the tile floor. Noah moved methodically with his mop, his mind far away, heart louder than the echo of the wheels on his cart. He glanced up and saw Isabel walking toward him, holding a clipboard, her steps unhurried. She had just come off a patient round, her hair slightly tousled from the rush, but there was a calmness about her. She always looked like she belonged to a slower, softer world. Noah hesitated, his hands tightening around the mop handle. He knew what he was about to do. He had rehearsed the words in his head all night. And still, when she stopped a few feet from him and gave him that familiar half-smile, his voice almost failed him. Almost. He cleared his throat. Hey, Isabel? She paused. Yeah? He shifted his weight, tried to act casual, failed. Would you dance with me at the school event? It came out faster than he meant it to, like ripping off a Band-Aid. He immediately regretted how blunt it sounded, but it was too late. Isabel blinked, caught off guard. Then, slowly, her lips curved into a wide grin. She tilted her head. Only if you promise not to step on my toes." Noah laughed, surprised at how easy her answer was, relieved even. "No guarantees," he said, voice lighter now. They both stood there in that sliver of sunlight, grinning at each other like teenagers who had just shared a secret. Neither said more. They did not need to. Their eyes held the rest of the conversation. After she walked away, Noah exhaled a breath he had been holding for days. That night, while the hospital slept, Noah found an unused patient room with an old TV cart and a long mirror on the wall. He set his phone on the cart, opened a YouTube video labeled "How to Slow Dance" for complete beginners, and pressed play. The voice from the video was cheery and overly enthusiastic. Noah, on the other hand, moved stiffly, awkwardly, but he kept at it. 2 steps left, 2 steps right, turn, back again, and again. The janitor cart stood silently outside the door, as if guarding his secret. For the next few nights, that little room became his sanctuary. Between shifts, when no one was watching, he danced. Sometimes to silence, sometimes to the quiet music in his head. He was not trying to impress anyone. He just wanted to be ready. For her. On his way home one morning, Noah stopped by a second-hand shop tucked between a laundromat and a closed-down diner. It was the kind of place that smelled like old leather and forgotten memories. He wandered through the cluttered aisles until something caught his eye, a navy blue bow tie, slightly wrinkled, vintage but classic. It reminded him of the ones Fred Astaire used to wear. He picked it up and turned it over in his hand. It cost $3. He paid in coins, thanked the old man at the counter, and carried it home like it was made of gold. At the apartment, while his grandfather napped in the recliner, Noah gently washed the bow tie by hand in the sink. He ironed it carefully using a towel and a hot pan. No iron in the house. Then hung it on the wall above his desk. Each night after that, he looked at it before leaving for work. A reminder, not just of a dance, but of a promise, to himself and to her, that no matter where he came from, or what he did for a living, or how life had tried to shrink his world, he was still allowed to want something beautiful. Even just one dance. The night of the spring charity dance arrived with the buzz of anticipation floating through the cool evening air. Paper lanterns swung gently from strings tied between the trees, and soft jazz music drifted from the speakers set up around the edge of the lawn. The campus courtyard had been transformed into something out of a dream. Golden light, white tablecloths, and a dance floor polished to perfection. Noah stood near the far end, his back straight, hands nervously tugging at the sleeves of a suit jacket that didn't quite fit. It was his grandfather's, from a time when people dressed to go dancing. The fabric was a little worn, the seams a little loose at the shoulders, but it had been pressed and cleaned, and to Noah it felt like armor. Around him, groups of students arrived in pairs, laughter echoing, dresses swirling, bow ties straightened. Everyone seemed to fit. Everyone, except him. He checked his phone again. Nothing. He looked toward the entrance. Still nothing. Minutes passed. He rocked on the balls of his feet, willing himself to stay calm, stay hopeful. She said yes, she would come. The music shifted to a slower tempo. Couples were starting to pair off, the dance floor growing full. Noah stepped back into the shadows of a tree, unsure if he should keep waiting. Then, headlights. A sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb just outside the courtyard. The driver stepped out and opened the door with a white-gloved hand. And then she appeared. Isabel. She stepped out gracefully, her blonde hair cascading over one shoulder, a silver-blue gown catching the light like moonlit water. She looked like she had walked straight out of a movie. The kind of movie where girls like her did not belong in the same world as boys like him. Everything stopped. Conversations halted. The music faded into background noise. Noah felt the shift around him, the air tightening. The people near him started whispering. Is that Isabel Fairchild? The daughter of William Fairchild? Medica Corp? Noah's heart sank. He watched as Isabel smiled softly, scanning the crowd until her eyes landed on him. Her steps were sure and elegant as she walked toward him, heels tapping lightly against the stone. When she reached him, she stopped, only a breath away. Noah looked at her, really looked, and saw something familiar in her eyes. Nervousness, regret, maybe even hope. But his own voice came out hoarse, confused. "You're her?" Isabel opened her mouth, but he had already taken a step back. The whispers were growing louder now, students pulling out their phones, glancing between him and her like they had stumbled into a scandal. Fairchild, CEO's daughter, billion-dollar legacy. Noah's jaw clenched. The warmth of the night evaporated into a cold knot in his chest. "You could have told me," he whispered, not accusing, just hurt. Isabel shook her head gently, reaching for his hand, but he pulled it back. "Noah, please." He took another step back. The world felt too loud, too bright. The suit clung to him like it no longer belonged. This isn't me," he murmured. And before she could say anything else, Noah turned. He walked away, past the couples dancing, past the glowing lights, past the limo and the murmurs and the dreams he had let himself believe in. He didn't look back. The days that followed were colder than any winter Noah had known, even though spring was in full bloom outside the hospital windows. Everything felt muted, colors, sounds, even the way time passed. He kept his head down during shifts, worked through his breaks, and took different hallways to avoid the East Wing, where she used to sit and read. He hadn't spoken to Isabel since the night of the dance. He didn't have the words. What had started as something fragile and real now felt like a cruel twist, like he'd been part of a game he never agreed to play. He saw the way people looked at him now, with pity or amusement. Some of them had seen the scene at the dance. Whispers followed him, soft but sharp. He really thought she was just a nurse? Poor guy, literally. Noah let them talk. He said nothing, but the weight sat in his chest like stone. He had trusted her, and she hadn't trusted him enough to tell the truth. One night, as he opened his locker in the staff hallway, a small white envelope fell to the floor. His name was written on it in the familiar script he had seen too many times on post-it notes and patient charts. He stared at it for a long time before picking it up. Back in the empty break room, he unfolded the letter with hesitant fingers. "Noah, I didn't lie to you to protect myself. I lied to protect the one part of my life that felt real. With you, I wasn't Isabel Fairchild, daughter of a CEO. I was just Isabel, someone who liked bad coffee, wild daisies, and late-night conversations in hospital hallways. I knew the truth would change things, and I was afraid. Not of losing your respect, but of losing the version of myself I could only be when I was with you. I'm sorry. For not telling you. For making you feel small. You never were. You're the strongest person I know." Noah read the letter twice, then 3 more times. It was honest, soft, everything she always was. But the ache in his chest did not go away. He didn't respond, and Isabel didn't try again, until she disappeared entirely. A week passed, then 2. Her name disappeared from the nurse schedule. Her locker was emptied out. The seat by the East Wing window sat untouched. The daisy in the tin can had withered. It was as if she had never been there. Then he heard the rumors. A doctor's assistant whispered it first, something about a scene in the executive office, a shouting match, slamming doors. The daughter of William Fairchild had been seen arguing with her father in the hospital's top-floor boardroom. Apparently he found out about the janitor, the assistant said, laughing like it was some scandal from a TV drama. Threatened to cut her off completely. Another nurse confirmed it. Isabel had been pulled from her position, not transferred, removed. Noah tried not to react. He went back to work, kept his head down. But his hands trembled when he pushed the mop that night, and his throat burned from something he couldn't swallow. He didn't know what hurt more, that she had left, or that she hadn't said goodbye. The ballroom shimmered with gold and silver as chandeliers lit up the gala like a palace. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter floated over the string quartet's elegant music. It was the annual Medicacorp Hospital Foundation Gala, an event of prestige, wealth, and perfectly pressed tuxedos. Noah stood near the service entrance, dressed in a crisp white shirt and black apron, helping refill water pitchers and clear empty champagne flutes. His name tag read, "Event Support." No one paid him much attention, they never did. But then he saw her. Isabel. She entered on the arm of a man who looked like he had never been told no in his life. Dark suit, polished shoes, the subtle arrogance of someone born into power. On her other side, holding her hand just a second too tight, was William Fairchild, her father. She looked beautiful, graceful, untouchable. Noah froze in place, the tray in his hand suddenly weightless. She was dressed in deep emerald green, her hair swept back, her smile practiced but hollow. Their eyes met across the room. He started to turn away, but then she moved. Right in the middle of the dance floor, as her date spun her under the lights, Isabel broke rhythm, pulled her hand from his, and stepped away. She walked, no, ran, toward the edge of the ballroom, past startled guests and murmuring donors. Her heels clicked loudly against the marble floor, the sound chasing the silence that followed. Noah took a step back, unsure, but she was already there. "Isabel," he whispered. She didn't speak. She just reached for his hand. Before he could take it, William Fairchild stormed across the floor, his face red with fury. "You will not embarrass me like this." He stepped between them, shoved Noah's shoulder with force. Noah steadied himself, lips pressed into a line, trying to stay calm. But Fairchild's voice rose, sharp and venomous. "You think this janitor belongs in our world? You've disgraced yourself. You've disgraced this family." And then he struck Noah. A loud crack echoed through the ballroom. The room gasped in unison. Noah stumbled back a step, his cheek burning. He did not raise a hand. He did not say a word. But Isabel did. She stepped between them, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Don't touch him." Her father stared at her in disbelief. "You're choosing him? You'd throw away everything for this?" Isabel turned to Noah, eyes soft but steady. She reached for his hand again, and this time he took it. "Yes," she said. And together, without another word, they walked through the wide ballroom doors, past the stunned crowd, into the night. Rain was falling, gentle at first, then harder, the kind that soaked through clothes and skin and years of pretending. They didn't run. They didn't speak. They walked, hand in hand, through the garden path until they reached it. The bench. That old stone bench under the oak tree in the hospital courtyard. The place where it had all started, where they'd once shared silence like it was sacred. They stopped. The rain fell harder, blurring the lights from the windows above. Noah looked at her, voice rough from everything that had just happened. "Why would you risk everything? For me?" Isabel's eyes searched his for a long moment. Then she said it, softly, simply, with the truth she had always carried. "Because you're the only one who never asked me to be someone else." Noah did not answer. He didn't have to. He stepped closer, placed one hand gently on her waist, the other in her damp, trembling fingers. No music, no audience, no spotlight, just rain, and two people who had found each other in a world that had tried to keep them apart. And there, under the storm and the stars, they danced. The sun was gentle that morning, filtering through the tall windows of the newly built center, casting soft light over rows of white chairs and delicate floral arrangements. The banner across the entrance read in elegant script, "Stella Care, a place for dignity, light, and love." It had taken nearly a year of hard choices, sleepless nights, and rebuilding, not just buildings, but lives. Isabel had walked away from her father's empire. She had let go of the future that had been planned for her since childhood, the trust funds, the power, the boardroom seat waiting with her name engraved in gold. But she had kept a small portion of her inheritance, the one part of her past she could use to build something real. And with that, Stella Care was born. named after Noah's mother. A woman who had lived quietly, loved deeply, and believed in kindness above all. Stella, Latin for star. The center was a light for those in their darkest hours, the elderly, the forgotten, the terminally ill. Noah had been hesitant at first. He had never imagined himself as the director of anything. But Isabel believed in him, with a quiet, unshakable certainty. And so he took the role, not for prestige, but because he understood what it meant to be left behind, to feel unseen. He vowed no one under their care would ever feel that way again. The grand opening brought together volunteers, donors, former patients, and families from across the city. The small courtyard buzzed with warmth, laughter, and live music. At the center of it all stood Noah, now 24, no longer the quiet janitor in the corner. He looked sharp in a navy suit, a small star pin on his lapel. He stood behind the podium and took a breath. "This place is not about buildings," he said, voice steady, filled with quiet emotion. "It's about people, about giving dignity to every life, every ending, every beginning. My mother taught me that. And so did someone else, someone who reminded me that no dream is too small if it's built with love." Applause echoed through the courtyard. As he stepped down from the stage, Isabel appeared at the base of the steps. She wore a simple white dress, hair down, eyes glowing, not with glamour, but with peace. She had never looked more beautiful. He smiled as he approached her, holding out a hand. "Be my date, forever?" he asked, a playful sparkle in his eyes. She laughed softly, placing her hand in his. "As long as you keep off my toes." The crowd chuckled, applauding again, as the band struck up a slow classic tune. And there, in front of friends, strangers, and everyone who had followed their journey, Noah and Isabel shared their first official dance. It was nothing like the one he had once imagined. No ball gown glimmering under chandeliers, no fairy tale staging. It was better. It was real. As they swayed slowly, lost in the music and in each other, the camera panned down, capturing a final, quiet symbol. A pair of polished shoes, and beside them, a pair of white heels. Not soaked in rain this time, just standing side by side. Together, always. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of love, resilience, and the courage to choose your own path. If this story touched your soul, made you smile, cry, or believe in the power of genuine connection, we invite you to be part of our growing community. Subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more emotional, real, and inspiring tales that heal the heart and uplift the spirit. And don't forget to hit the hype button to show your support. It means the world to us and helps us keep bringing you stories that truly matter. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in the magic of love.